name is Adam Beza, and I'm an assistant psychologist at Private Therapy Clinic. In this video, I'm going to be speaking to Eve Dorr about her experiences with a psychology conversion course. So Eve is also an assistant psychologist here at Private Therapy Clinic and a very valuable member of our team. So if it's okay, I just want to try and get straight into it. And is it okay if you can just define what a conversion course is in psychology?
So it's basically like a 1-year degree that you can do, and it can convert any previous undergraduate degree you have into like the equivalent of a psychology undergraduate degree. And yeah, you can, as I say, you can do anything. Like you could have done anything before, and after having done the conversion course, you're kind of eligible for BPS membership, which is something you need to kind of move on to the next step of any kind of psychology career.
Okay. And so what were you studying before you did the psychology conversion course?
Yeah, so I was doing like an English degree, so obviously very different. And yeah, I have no previous psychology experience prior to doing the course. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, and what made you want to do psychology? Like, what inspired the change from English to psychology? I guess they are kind of similar in the writing, but other than that, they're quite different.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's definitely like elements that are similar. It wasn't so much for the course; it was more kind of as a career move. Like, I knew I wanted to do a job that was like in a caring profession that was also fairly academic, and then obviously that kind of whittles it down to a few things. I also kind of had personal therapy myself for like an eating disorder, so I kind of got a kind of a taste of what it's like being on the other side of the therapy chair, I suppose. And yeah, and I thought, oh, this is actually something I'd really like to do myself. And then through kind of volunteering, so I volunteered for like Samaritans. Again, you kind of get a bit of a taster of what it's like to kind of talk to someone in like distress and like guide them through like emotionally upsetting situations. And yeah, and I thought like, yeah, this is definitely something I'd really like to do as a career. And I thought about doing like a psychotherapy course. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought like, oh, I'm never going to be able to like master a science in a year. That's just like not going to be what I can do. But I think ultimately I wanted to like be a more diverse practitioner and have a lot of different therapeutic approaches that I could do like as quickly as possible. So I think someone explained it to me like when you become a psychologist, you're like a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Which is as opposed to being very specialised in one. So I think that kind of.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think especially the way that you described that you came to want to do psychology, I think you kind of find that that's the case with quite a few people. Like I know for myself, especially, like it's usually from like either seeing it firsthand or experiencing like a very difficult mental period where you really appreciate how valuable it is a science. But no, yeah. How did you find the transition from English to psychology? I think you did say that obviously there are some similarities, but like how else did you find the transition?
Yeah, definitely. So quite difficult. But I think the thing to remember with psychology is like you have to be good at like so many different things. So there is obviously a quite a large writing element in it, but then you have to be good at like statistics, thinking of kind of creative ways to overcome certain scientific problems, and also like noticing patterns in stuff and doing your own independent research. And also, obviously, if you want to become like an actual practitioner, you have to be good with people. So I think whilst I might be better at the kind of writing, kind of communication side of things, I obviously struggle more with the statistics and side of things. But again, like everyone kind of has their strengths and weaknesses. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I agree. So I did a BSc in psychology for 3 years, and I think I'm still weak in stats. So it's like, everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. But the course hopefully kind of addresses the skills that you didn't have from your other course, I assume.
Yeah. As I was just saying, like I haven't done maths since GCSE, so I don't worry anyone if they have like no mathematical skills, because like obviously you're not going to be the best mathematician, but yeah, you should be up to the standard that you need to be to kind of get by in most psychology professions. Obviously I think it's more important in kind of the research side of things, but
Okay. So you are studying English at Oxford, and now you're doing your conversion course in Nottingham. Is that right?
yeah, so I'm doing it remotely,
Okay.
but yeah, and it's like by no means like a prerequisite that you need like an Oxford degree to get on. Like if anything, like there are people who are like way better than me at it, like because I've like got weird habits that I've learned from my undergrad. So like yeah, all you need is like a 2-1 from any uni, and I know some people can do it if they haven't got like an undergraduate degree, and you can apply for like the PG dip route. It's a slightly different course, but again, you don't even actually need a degree to do it. So
Okay. And so you did mention that you said it's like a 2-1 would be the minimum. Is it the minimum to be able to apply for a?
yeah, I think at most kind of Russell Group unis, you require like a 2-1. So.
Okay. And what was the application process like, other than obviously having to get that 2-1? Like, then how would you go from doing your previous course to now doing a conversion?
Yeah, so I mean, it's fairly straightforward. Like most places, you don't need a research proposal, which I know is a prerequisite for a lot of master's degrees. But basically, you just write a personal statement, just kind of explaining your rationale for why you want to study psychology. So I obviously said like I want to kind of train as a clinical counselling psychologist, and this is obviously a necessary step. And yeah, I mean, I think you just kind of need to show that you're able to study at that kind of level, and maybe show some like evidence of wider reading that you've done in psychology, obviously, and yeah, maybe like add in any work experience to kind of back up like that it's like a thought out decision that you've decided to apply.
Okay. And so you applied to Nottingham. So when you were like, can you just take me through the process of when you were actually applying, and like what was it that you saw in Nottingham that made you pick it over maybe your other choices, and like what were you looking for when applying for a conversion course?
Yeah, so I mainly picked Nottingham because of the fact that you could do it online. Obviously, the current situation.
Yeah.
But I'd say the main things that people need to look out for are the conversion course being BPS, so British Psychological Society accredited. Otherwise, if you are doing it as a career move, then you're going to kind of come against roadblocks there if it's not. And I know some conversion courses that aren't. Even if they are actually more kind of focused to like the applied side of things, which is quite interesting. And yeah, I'd say also make sure that it has a research project as part of the kind of course requirement, because obviously that's a really useful skill to have developed, and if you can get that published, then that's going to be a really useful thing that you can show to employers or a university if you want to do further study. And I know not all conversion courses offer that, so.
Okay. And so as a psychology graduate, so I did a BSc as well. I'm really interested to know the modules that are included in a conversion course. So from my perspective, like I think my time at university was difficult because there was so much information packed into 3 years, and so trying to understand how to do it in 1 year seems amazing. First of all, like it's really impressive to be able to do it, but I understand it would be made like manageable. So if you could kind of just explain a little bit about the modules and like how you find all of the workload.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. The thing to remember is that like you're doing undergraduate courses for the most part, so it shouldn't be at a level that's like beyond what you're kind of capable of doing already if you've got a previous degree. And basically the way it works is it kind of takes, I assume, the 4 modules from a 3-year degree and kind of condenses them into 1 year, as you just mentioned. So they'll probably have different names for different universities, but there should be some kind of statistics module. There'll be something to do with like research methods and writing lab reports and stuff to do with that. Social and developmental psychology, cognitive psychology, neuroscience, personality psychology, and then there'll be some kind of module probably on kind of conceptual ideas in psychology. So kind of I think it's like the epistemology of psychology science and kind of the historical shifts in it over the years. And did I say personality psychology?
Yeah.
And I also do optional modules, so that's a good thing about Nottingham is I know a lot of unis don't offer like things that you're particularly interested in. So I also study forensic and clinical psychology. And in terms of the workload, like it's definitely a full-on degree. I think everyone else I am on the course would agree. But yeah, it's definitely not manageable. Like obviously I work at a private therapy clinic alongside it. So it's just a case of like treating it like a full-time job and just getting your head down for a year, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. You just mentioned like a few times I think would maybe be useful to go into a bit for somebody who's not really familiar with the psychology course. So like, for example, you mentioned like statistics and research methods. So like, I guess some people who already have a BSc would be familiar with these things depending on the nature of their course. But for somebody who's not, like, would you mind just explaining quickly like what statistics are and research methods and how they're used in psychology?
Okay, so testing me a bit here, but I guess the kind of very distilled version of it would be for statistics is it's basically like methods you can use to analyze data in a way that is kind of consistent across like the field of psychology. So you do things called like analysis of variance and multiple regression, which I would tell you in more detail, but I'll probably butcher the explanation. But it sounds really scary, but they're actually okay if you like. Obviously, it's like maths; like it requires like some time and like perseverance with it. But it shouldn't be. If you've got like a GCSE in maths, it shouldn't be beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And just research methods, so you kind of learn different approaches to doing research in psychology, basically. So far I've done a qualitative like lab report using like thematic analysis. So that's kind of using more language-driven data, basically, which I kind of really got on with, obviously, because of my previous degree.
Like self-reports and stuff of that nature?
Yeah, it was like analysing like questionnaire answers and stuff, and then but the kind of majority of the stuff is quantitative. So how to bear that in mind when you're applying. I think that's probably the case at most unis. So it's very much like analysing numerical data, but there is still like quite a large writing element in
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's quite a good explanation, to be honest. In terms of those modules that you've mentioned to us so far, like which one of those would you say you're like most interested in, just on a personal basis? Like obviously this can vary depending on the individual, but like you personally, what did you find most interesting out of the modules?
Yeah, so there's not been one where I've been like, oh my god, I hate all of this. Like there's definitely been parts of all of them that I'm like, yes, this is interesting. And especially having like gained a bit more practical experience recently, it's been interesting to see how some of the theories in them kind of play out in real life, which is quite cool. I'd say overall my favorite one so far has kind of been the conceptual ideas in psychology, which is a bit of a rogue one. But I don't know, I find it quite interesting, like the politics of like research and stuff like that, and kind of research ethics. So yeah, which is it's kind of nice to know, I suppose, if you've done a degree that's completely unrelated, that things that maybe don't stand out as being something you would like necessarily enjoy are actually quite interesting to learn about. So.
Okay, yeah, I think like conceptual psychology, did you say, like conceptualizing?
Yeah, conceptual and historical ideas.
Okay, I don't think that's something that I came across in my degree, but I think degrees can vary in terms of the modules that they present, but there's always going to be like baseline ones, like what we've mentioned. So statistics, research methods, social psychology, developmental. Like these are all things that are familiar. But then each course is kind of nuanced towards whatever they're more interested in, I guess. So maybe Nottingham, that's like a historical aspects of the science are quite important to them. But so, sorry?
What were your favourites?
My favourites. Stats wasn't my favourite, okay, but I did really enjoy it, just from the fact that I didn't do anything like it before, like where you apply maths to real life experiments and stuff like that. So I enjoyed being able to do it, but obviously I didn't enjoy studying it at all. But I'd say we had judgment and decision making, which was one of our modules, which was amazing. It was like the psychology behind like economical decision making, and stuff like that. And then we also had a really cool module called evidence and inquiry, which was basically trying to show the power of psychology to us, in that the lecturer would tell us to bring forward a question every lecture, and he would basically pick them out of the hat, and then we'd spend the next 3 weeks trying to investigate the question scientifically. So we'd like do an experiment on whatever the question was, and then gather the data and write a report. But like one question, for example, was like, can you cheat a casino, or do ghosts exist? So it was like really like wacky stuff. But no, I really enjoyed my psychology BSc, and I guess for anybody who's like not sure about whether they should do it or not, I think you've kind of made it quite clear that it is quite doable, right, in terms of managing the workload of maybe a 3-year course into a 1 year like period. But again, it's just down to what you're kind of trying to do with your life and what you're interested in. But psychology is obviously a really significant and impactful science that has implications really for everything, because it's dealing with humans. So absolutely. But thank you so much for speaking with us today, Eve. It has really been like quite beneficial to hear what the course is like. Like I wasn't really sure about it at all, really, from somebody who did psychology before. But it does sound like a really great way to transition to something that you want to do. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.